Can I see my hand? Now, please understand, I didn't know I was really dead. I didn't feel dead one another. So it's brilliant light. So you're trying to protect your eyes. It's too bright. And there was all these people starting to come out of this light. I said, "Oh, Manny," and she came right up to me. She was very close, maybe a foot away. And she said, "Heather, you have died." And I went whisked from there to do a life review. I called it a wormhole. It's almost like a tube, but if you could imagine, it's kind of like plasma. You move through that really fast. You really, really move through it very, very quickly, but it also has color to it. I went through one of those. There was almost like a very tiny auditorium where you would come in and you would talk to other souls about your lifetime here. There was also the place of learning. Then I was taken from there. Then we were off at the, I called it the Hall of Learning, and I know a lot of people have corrected me and said it's the Akashic Records, Heather. And so the Crystal City, it was so beautiful and so peaceful and emanated amazing light frequencies, but very, very soft tones of pink. The light was also palpable. Everything seemed alive, like color was alive. I know that doesn't make sense.
Hi, this is Akanksshaa. If you're new here, please subscribe to my channel. If you resonate with me, please like, comment, and share. Welcome to Multidimensional Soul Podcast and a Talk Show. We have with us today Heather May from Canada, who's had an extraordinary near-death experience, and we're going to learn all about that. Heather, a very warm welcome to Multidimensional Soul Podcast and Talk Show. It's an honor to have you here.
Thank you so much. I'm thrilled to be here. Actually, it's an honor to be here as well and sharing this space with you and whomever is going to be actually hearing this in the future. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Namaste. So I understand you were an atheist before your near-death experience, and then you had this experience. So can you talk a little bit about being an atheist and then having this experience? How was your experience? What exactly happened?
Yes, absolutely. I grew up in a very scientific home, I guess, and there was never a discussion of religion, anything, ever. And I can only, even with my cousins, except for one who did go to Sunday school once in a while, but I think it's because my aunt wanted the kids out of the house on Sunday. And I had slept over there with my cousins, and we went to the church was right next door, actually, to where they lived. And she said, "Well, go over there. You're to go with your cousins." And I didn't actually want to go. I was pretty young, actually. It must have been in between 6 and 7 years of age. And I went there, and there was stories and showing of books, and then we were coloring. I can't remember what it was. I think it could have been a picture of Jesus, but I'm not sure. And everybody was sitting in a circle, and the Sunday school teacher was asking us questions, and she had never seen me before. So she asked me if I believed in God. So I said no. Because I don't know anything about that. So I had said no, and she was mortified. She actually went, she couldn't believe it. All the kids were looking at me, and I was like, I don't know anything about that. So that's, so anyways, and we had a death in the family. I was approximately 7, maybe 7.5, and I had asked my father about what happens when we die. And, he was very point blank about it, because he said, well, nothing. You live, you die, and you're in the ground. That's all. And I took, he was my father. So I took it at face value. It's like, oh, okay. And I kind of lived that way as a little kid, in school. We didn't really have any of that. I was in a Protestant school. We sang God Save the Queen, because of course we're part of the Commonwealth, and that sort of thing. And we had the odd hymn, and I remember a particular hymn. It was called Onward Christian Soldiers, and the song goes onward Christian soldiers, and they were actually killing people for the sake of God. And I was really confused about that. I was in grade 3, so I was by then basically 9 years old, and it just didn't make any sense to me. It was killing for God, it didn't make any sense. And so that was pretty much all the religious anything I ever had. That was it in a nutshell. And so I didn't have the background. I had science. My family was very much in science. Everything was about scientific discoveries, science in accordance to medical health advances. These are the conversations in my home. So that was all. And then, of course, as I grew older, and by the time I was 28, I continued to have this belief structure. I mean, the truth of the matter is, teenagers don't go around talking about their belief structures. There was some areas I had a different belief structure that I pretty much kept quiet. My cousins thought I was very strange, because as a child, and I mean a younger child, so 3, 4, 5, going onward from there, I was always very concerned about bugs and trees, and you're hurting the trees, and don't hurt the flowers. Like, as a child, I had believed that everything was alive, and if you put a nail in a tree, it felt pain, so I had that type of thing. But it's not something we discussed. I didn't talk to my parents about it, and other than my cousins, because we were all in and around the same age, just thought I was kind of strange. And eventually I just stopped talking about it altogether. I didn't mention it, not even in high school. And then, of course, by the time I was 28, I had a car accident. I was a passenger, and my seatbelt did not work, and so I did not have seatbelt on. We hit at 70 an hour in an intersection. Now, the car I was in was a very small car, and we hit a very, very large car. And it was a very old car, so it was heavy and very big. I don't know, it was like a Cadillac or something, an old Cadillac from, I don't know cars very well. Maybe it was from 1970, it was big and old. And so it crushed the whole front of the vehicle like an accordion. And I, of course, was thrown forward. I didn't have a seatbelt on. I was out for a period of time. I don't know how long. It was winter. It was very, very, very cold. It was minus high 30s, so minus 38, maybe minus 40. Of course, I'm in northern area of Canada, and I kept getting out of the car. My daughter was in the car. I would get out of the car. I would open the back door. I would check on her. And I sort of remember doing it, but not really, sort of. And so I check her face, check her body, her seat, everything. And then I'd get back in the car, and then I'd get out of the car, and then I would go look at the front of the car and look at the accident. And then I'd check on my daughter. And apparently I kept doing it over and over again. I think I was in some kind of shock. Some good Samaritans had come. I do remember that. I remember being put in a vehicle because it was very, very cold, and we had no heat in the car now because it wasn't running. And so was my daughter. Anyways, long story short, the complications from the car accident, because I hit face on, but my legs and everything were in the dash of the car. There was a lot of damage to my vascular system and my legs. And the repercussion was a deep vein thrombosis. And I was an avid cyclist. And so getting, this was getting towards the end of the winter. So now it's spring, and I always cycled to work. I worked for a newspaper. I was a news editor. Always cycled to work. I cycled my daughter to her, to her daycare, and then I would cycle to work. But I found I had like a very bad Charlie horse, very, very bad, that never went away. And I found it difficult to cycle. I did about 10K every day. And this was a real challenge. I started to go see doctors about it. I ended up seeing 9 doctors about it. Well, I guess technically it could have been 10, technically 10. I was seeing my 9th doctor. And by this level, I was so tired of doctors not paying attention to me. I actually diagnosed myself, and I said, I'm concerned I have a deep vein thrombosis. That was from the car accident. And the 9th doctor had said, don't be ridiculous. Don't be ridiculous, Heather. You would be in a lot of pain. Well, I was in a lot of pain. I actually was. But he said, well, you don't have swelling. Your leg isn't red. Well, okay, I didn't show those classic symptoms. And so he brought another doctor in, and they both kind of looked at me and they said, well, how much pain are you in? I said, well, do you want a number? Is it 1 to 10, 10 meaning the most? Yes. And they said yes. And so I said, well, I'm about a 9 to a 9.5. And this is where it stays. And I'm worried because I'm going on vacation and we're driving, to British Columbia to see my family. And they said, oh, you're probably just stressed from work. Go enjoy your vacation. You're fine. I said, well, I would like a venogram. No, they all laughed. The 2 doctors laughed at me and said, don't be ridiculous. You're too young for any of that, and go be on your vacation. You'll feel so much better, they told me. But I left there feeling, in the pit of your stomach, you feel kind of like doom. It's not a good feeling. It's not a good feeling. And I thought, I've tried everything I can do, and if anything is going to happen, then so be it. And so I went home and I packed. My daughter was coming as well because we were visiting her grandparents, and my father, my side of the family, they're around Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada, of course. And anyway, we were driving for, it's approximately like 12, 15 hours, depending how many stops of driving. And we had stopped approximately about 6 hours in for kind of like a picnic lunch. And to my amazement, I didn't have any pain in my leg anymore. And I thought, oh, well, isn't that nice? I don't have any pain in my leg anymore. Okay, well, that's good. That's good. I thought, oh, that's good. And so we continued to go to Penticton. Now, Penticton is in a kind of like a valley. It's very warm, British Columbia, and to see my grandparents. So we had arrived there. I still had no pain in my leg. We enjoyed seeing my grandparents for a little while. We were there just in time to have a late supper, which we did. And it was later that evening that I felt not great, not good in my chest, a little bit of pressure, but I didn't really know why. And it was the next day because we were cycling. We all had mountain bikes or mountain biking, but I had realized I couldn't even keep up to my daughter. It's like, I couldn't catch enough air. And I thought, I must be getting sick or something. Maybe I'm getting a chest infection. I couldn't figure it out, to be honest with you. And so we couldn't really cycle. And by that evening, so this is one full day in Penticton, and by evening, I was feeling very, very tired, exhausted. And we were leaving the next day to drive to see my father. My stepsister at the time had wanted me to go out with her. I only went for a little while, and she told me I was very boring because I found I was exhausted. I couldn't really breathe, and I really didn't want to be in a club. Anyway, so, I went to bed at my grandparents'. We got up the next day to drive to my father's. By time we got to my father's, at that time he was living just outside of Langley, British Columbia, and I really was not feeling well. I had pressure, but it was in my back, my upper back, and I didn't understand that. We got to his house, we had dinner. I couldn't lean back by that stage on anything because for some reason it was very painful. And so I just kind of sat straight, visiting with them. And then it was time to go to bed. And I could not lay down in the bed. I kind of just sat up. I thought I must be terribly sick with what I didn't know. I was with my fiance. It was one of the reasons why we were visiting family, because I wanted that side of the family to be acquainted with my fiance. Because, of course, I was in a different province, and we didn't see this side of the family very often. At any rate, the next day, my fiance was off to see friends of his who had recently moved to Vancouver. And we were supposed to be at a dinner party. I was supposed to meet with him later. My father took me to go and see aunts and uncles and cousins, and, from that side of the family. And I was feeling so unwell, actually, I was quite quiet with the family. I was just kind of sitting there. Usually I'll tell stories or jokes or something. That wasn't happening. I was just kind of sitting there confused with how unwell I felt. But I had been brought up in a family where, one, you don't cause alarm, two, pull up your socks and carry on. So that's how I was raised. And I didn't want to call attention to myself. We left there, meaning we, my father, my daughter, myself, and my stepmother, because my father was going to drive me to where this gathering, this dinner party was, and take and babysit my daughter, his granddaughter, of course. I got there, and there were all kinds of people there, and they were having drinks and everything, and I did not have anything. I think I had maybe a couple of sips of water. There was no drinks. I was not socializing with anybody. I was just kind of sitting there, feeling a lot of pressure in my chest, but it started in the back and through my chest, and it was hard to breathe. It was like, I don't know, trying to breathe through a really thin straw, right? It was very difficult. And she made a beautiful, supper, beautiful dinner for everybody. And she had asked me, she said, do you not like the hors d'oeuvres? And then it was, do you not like the dinner? I couldn't eat anything. And I said, no, it's actually, it's lovely. I'm not feeling well. And eventually I ended up getting up and I went into the washroom and I was standing at a big mirror and I was standing there looking at myself and I had this terrible sense of doom. And I looked at myself and I said, you know, Heather, if you don't get out of this washroom and tell people you need help, you need an ambulance, you're going to die. You're going to die. And that's how assured I was of it, because that doom, it just comes over you and filters right through your body of a knowing. And so I left there by the time everybody's in the house and the music's going. And I said, I need an ambulance. You know, I yelled it and they looked at me, they turned down the volume of the music. And I mean, I might have been about the youngest, 28. So the average person was in their early 30s. Even still, it's young. And so they all looked at me and said, what? I said, I need an ambulance. I need an ambulance right now. And some of them, their mouths dropped open. You know, how could this possibly be? My I was going to say ex, my fiance at the time said, no, don't call one. I'll drive her. And I thought, oh my gosh, you know, and I said to him, you don't even know where we are. You've never been to Vancouver. You have no idea how to get to the hospital. I want an ambulance. And I kind of was just picked up. I don't know what happened at that stage because I was kind of picked up, brought outside and stuffed in the car. And then we were off. And I thought, oh my gosh, he doesn't know where he's going. He's not going to know. Well, time went by. We got lost. He ended up driving over the border into the United States. That's what he did. And I thought, oh my gosh, like, this is very, very bad. And I was very, very worried. But as we kind of got over the border, it was like, I lost my ability to speak. And no, sorry, I lost my ability first to hear. And so he somehow pulled around to come back into the line, to come back into Canada. And I had said to him, I need to go to the washroom. I was feeling really tremendously bad by then. I didn't know what to do. I thought a splash of water on my face because actually I didn't know what was going on, to be honest with you. And so I get into the washroom. It was literally hand over hand of the vehicle to get to the door of the washroom, to open it. It was a very long counter with many sinks, hand over hand, until I was leaning against the wall in a hand dryer. And that's where I stood. And I don't know how long I was there. And I remember this elderly lady, gosh, she was just so amazing. She was a beautiful lady. And she came over to me and she was talking to me, but all I could see was her lips moving. You know, when somebody's talking to you, you can't hear. And she felt my head like this and then like this, and she's talking to me. And I'm just leaning up against it. And she went to the washroom. She came back out, said something more to me. And I remember thinking, oh my gosh, I need help. I need help. And I'm screaming it in my head. Of course, she can't hear me. And then she left. And I was like, I was afraid by then because she left and now I'm alone and I can't speak and I really don't know how to get help. And so eventually I kind of slid myself along that long counter of sinks out the door. I managed to get back in the car. Now, I must have been there a long time because he was angry and I could tell he was angry how he was, you know, and I didn't even say anything because I couldn't. I couldn't hear. I couldn't speak by this time. I couldn't anything. And so we started coming back over into the Canada, of course, Border Patrol, Canadian side. I thought, okay, well, here's my chance. Here's my chance. He's going to look. And so he even pointed at me, and I leaned forward slightly. I don't know what my fiance said to him, and he waved us through. By the time he waved us through, I knew that was it. There is an incredible sense of hopelessness, that you are not having help of any kind. The doom was so present in every fiber of my body, and now we were morphing into something else. And as I was in the vehicle, he started driving very fast, so I don't really know why. Maybe I was looking very gray. I don't even know. And there was like an S turn, and he took it really fast. And I kind of sloshed around the vehicle a bit. The pain was so immense. It was excruciating. It was excruciating. I grabbed at my chest. I screamed in my head, because I know it. I didn't scream outside because I guess he would have looked at me or something. I must have slumped over because the dash of the car was like this close. It was so close to me. But I was confused about it. I didn't understand, how is it that I'm so close? I could see the design of the leather. It was almost like looking through a microscope. It was just odd. And the buttons for the radio and everything. And I thought, oh, how come I'm so close to the dash? I didn't even know I had slumped over. I had no idea. And next thing I knew, I was back. I guess he told me, he pulled me back. And at this stage, I knew I was going to die. I knew I was going to die. And there was really no hope. All hope of saving was gone. And we were on this pitch black highway. There was no other cars. It was dark. And what ended up happening was, it's like this darkness started to come, but it was kind of like from the back, it's sort of above. And it started to come over me, but there was a sound to it. And I don't know how I could hear that sound, but it was kind of like a whoosh, like a very, very light. And it came more and more and more and more. And until all I could see was out of a tiny little hole. That was my entire vision, was one tiny little hole. And until there was nothing. And I was afraid of dying. I didn't want to die, to be quite frank with you. I did not want to die, but I knew I was going to. There's this, it's like a peaceful surrendering that it's going to happen. And I did feel that. It was fear. I had a very brief moment of fear. It wasn't long. And then the surrendering. And then I'm somewhere in this incredible blackness. It is so dark there, but not scary. And it was so very, very dark. And for anybody who ever is wondering, when I'm looking up, because I'm very, very visual, and as I'm remembering it, it's like playing out again. And that's how it works for me. And so I'm in this darkness that's pitch black, and it's silent, but it's actually comfortable. It's oddly comfortable, and it's peaceful. And I would liken the whole experience to, if you've ever been at a lake where you're the only one there, and it's so incredibly peaceful, and you go in for like a swim, but you're floating on your back with your eyes closed, and you feel that surrendering with the water, but this is with the darkness, and that you're completely embraced, you're comfortable, and it was kind of like a sense of floating. And It was warm, it was comfortable, and I was not afraid, but I did want to know, how dark is it here? How dark is it really? Can I see my hand? Now, please understand, I didn't know I was really dead. I didn't feel dead. I
You
didn't
were still in
actually
the
feel.
car at that time.
No, 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 no. I'm out of there. I am in a totally different place.
Okay.
I'm in this, I called it the abyss because I really didn't know what else to call it, to be honest with you. So I called it the abyss, and I guess I had died by that stage, and I'm in this place. But I didn't know I was dead because I didn't feel dead. And no, I was not one of the people that got to look down on my body. And no, it was the blackness came, little vision, then no vision. And it was like I was just gone to this place. Way, like I put my hand in front of my face. No, I could not see my hand. That's how dark it was. And I was like, oh, and I was always a very curious person. So, I mean, obviously that part of my personality was still with me, but way, 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 way off in the distance, it was like this teeny weeny spark of light. Very, very far away, it seemed, but it was very, very tiny. And of course, you can't miss it because there's nothing but blackness all around you. And I saw that and I went, oh, what is that? What is that? And it was very far away, and it started to get a little bit closer and closer and closer. I was like, oh, it's getting closer. How odd. What is it? I had no idea. As it came closer, long story short, it was like kind of like a swirling tunnel, but I mean, it had a smaller part to the lower end, and you could see that it was wide. And so it's coming towards me, and I'm looking at it, and okay, it's odd, and it's gray, it has lots of gray in it, but it's not a dark gray. It's like a swirling light medium tones of gray, but it also has, I call them sparkles of light in there too. And okay, I'm still curious, I'm still okay because it's not too close to me. But next thing I knew, it was over me and I'm being taken up in it. This is where I'm not so comfortable anymore. And I have no way to stop this rising. And I actually thought maybe I could stop it. So I put my arms out, I put my legs out, I'll probably look like a starfish. But what happened was the sides of it widened. And so I could touch the sides. Because I thought if I could touch the sides, I could stop whatever's happening. That actually scared the daylights out of me. I was scared by that stage because I could not stop what was happening, and I didn't know what was happening, and I didn't know what this was. I had no idea what was going on, and I was terrified. And I kept going up and up and up, and it seemed like, I don't know, it was sort of like a slow rising elevator, I guess. And when I had looked up, because I did look up, it was really bright at the top of that, extremely, extremely bright, like this light. And so I'm looking at it and I have no idea what it is. But I'm still internally, I'm freaking out. And I get to the very top of it and it's kind of like being popped out. And so now I'm in this space, this place that I don't know what it is. And it is beautiful, beautiful, amazing white light. It's not like a whole bunch of lights just got turned on in a room. It's different. It's palpable. It has levels to it. It's brilliantly white. It's brilliantly, some areas are like a bluish white light. It has depth to it. And I had no idea what it was. Way off in the background, and this is what I always find interesting when I'm relaying my experience. If you can imagine you're at a football game, let's just say, and it's all these big massive lights, and there's many, many of them, like half of a football field full, but they're all stacked on top of one another. So it's brilliant light. So you're trying to protect your eyes. It's too bright. And then from there comes, at first I didn't know what it was, but there was movement. And then eventually I noticed outlines, and then I noticed silhouettes. And there was all these people starting to come out of this light. And I didn't like that, actually. I didn't like that. I was actually quite scared of that. And I told them to stop and get the F, fill the word in, away from me, back up, go away, like blank off. I was actually quite vile. I was not very nice about the whole thing, to be honest with you. I was frightened, and I was not using very nice language, let's put it that way. And it was a good sized group, by the way. It was a really good sized group, which I found kind of confusing of who these people were. And then the part of the first row stepped forward. And that was when I started noticing, oh, wait a minute. There's my great grandmother, called her Nanny. Oh, my great grandfather. Oh, there's my Uncle Dick and my Aunt Alice. And, started to notice people. And then it's like, what? But they're dead. Why am I, what's happening? And so I am actually continue to be quite scared as to what's going on. My great grandmother that I called Nanny had stepped much more forward. She's coming towards me, and I'm watching her, and I said, "Oh, Nanny," and she came right up to me. She was very close, maybe a foot away, and she said, "Heather, you have died." I was dumbstruck by that. You have died. And once it started to really register on that level, I actually started to cry. And I said, no, it can't be, it can't be. It also still makes me cry. I could still cry on how I felt then. And I had fallen to my knees on some kind of a floor. I don't know, because I don't know where we are. It's some kind of a floor, there was a bottom. I fell to my knees, and you know how you bring yourself into a ball, and I put my hands over my face, and my head is almost like touching my knees, basically. And I'm sobbing. I didn't get to do anything. I didn't get to do anything. I didn't get to live. I didn't get to do anything. And there's all this beautiful white light all around me. But at that time, I didn't notice it because of all my freaking out and my vile tone and words and telling people to get away from me. There was this other, as I'm sobbing, there was a shift, and it's almost like a shift in energy. But what I noticed about it was, yes, a beautiful white light, but there was also some gold. And I knew then that I was in the presence, I guess we could call it, of something different, something more. And I was told, I was told that I would be okay. And this great amount of love. I was told that, I could feel the love, but it was more than that. It was grace, incredible grace, and humility, and this level of surrendering and acceptance and support. It was huge. Like, we don't know it here. And then from there, sorry, I don't know. I do this every time. And I only do this because it's incredible. And I went whisked from there to do a life review.
Wow.
It was that fast. Instant life review. And the life review, actually, I'm sorry. The life review, it's not like looking at a wall of images. It's not like that. You are truly part of it. You are the witness. You are the executor. You are the experiencer. You're everything in the life review all at one time. And I was there with, I call them kind of like light beings because that's all they seem to be for me, was light. The life review, you feel everything. You're just so incredibly submersed in it. You feel absolutely everything. You see everything. You know everything. You know the person who may you had an argument with them, how they felt, if it was shame, if it was anger, if it was rage, if it was confusion. You felt it all. I felt it all because they felt it all. It affected them. And then there's the other side of the coin, because you're not just shown, those things. It's absolutely gentle and graceful, and it is not about scolding. It is not about, oh, this was bad of you. No, it's for learning and understanding. And so that's why I was being shown the life review. Within that life review, I was also shown how, right to the detail of how words affect people. And so words, that the tone, the actual word you use, and what's the energy within it that actually gets absorbed into the person. They absorb it and they take it on. May it be beautiful words of love and support and everything. They take that in. And if it's yelling and screaming, that energy looks very, very different. So I'll go back to the love. When you're sharing, you really truly love somebody and you're just communicating with them, that actually is part of the energy. And that energy is very smooth and it moves very nicely. It's graceful. But when it's anger, rage, hate, aggression, it's choppy, it's dark. It could be very, very dark red with specks of black in it. It could be, it's jagged energy even. It's very, very different energy. And they absorb that too. And they'll claim it. Now, depending upon their belief structure, if you're telling them they're useless and no good and, they're never going to do anything, become anything, depending upon what you're saying to somebody, they take it right into their body and they bring it right into their belief structure that maybe they already think that they're not as good as anybody else. And so it builds upon their belief structure. And so I'm feeling this, I'm watching this, I know how it's working, and I know how that person then walked away with all those feelings and another level of their belief structure and believing that they're no good. They aren't any good, they're useless, and their self-esteem crashes even more. And so they continue with life, and however many people are going to be doing that to them. It's the same thing with kindness. Now, if you're just kind, even to a stranger, because I was shown just to help somebody at the grocery store, to smile at somebody, for some people, it made their day. There was an elderly gentleman, and I had talked with him. We were at the produce, and I was just talking with him and smiling, and we were talking about produce, and he actually felt accepted, and that kindness came into him and washed over him. That I could really feel that from him. And just that little moment of time meant so much to him. And so it's that sort of thing that we don't even recognize, we don't even realize that just a smile is a big deal. Because that smile, there's energy broadcast happening with that smile. And the people or the person feels that too. And that we're connected for that moment of time. The other thing I had learned in the near-death experience was also about some more harsh things. You know, I don't know, maybe people had frenemies, you know, friends as their children. We all have friends and then we're maybe fighting, you know. But there was a friend of mine and we had that back and forth constantly when we were growing up in the neighborhood. Sometimes we were great together and other times we were really nasty to each other. And we were both very affected by that. Because when somebody is nice and warm with you, as when we were friends with each other, you're more open, and you're more open to receive them and have that nice exchange with one another. But when it suddenly became harsh and fighting as children, it was very painful. It was very, very painful, and it felt dark and heavy, and it was really quite brutal, to be honest with you. And we would both walk away with that on how it affected us in different areas in different ways. She, for her, ended up feeling less than and not as acceptable. And for me, I ended up feeling myself that I was, because of how she said it, that I wasn't intelligent. And so I took that on that I was stupid, basically, and I was unlikable. And so we both walked away with that energetically, that we stored within ourselves. And because we were so open, and then when it came crashing down, it hurt even more. And so I was watching that. I was watching a lot of that. Good deeds that I had done. I did end up in a group home as a teenager, and in a group home, unfortunately, there were girls there who there's no support systems, there isn't anything. When you leave, it's like it's a foster home, but this was not a kind place. It wasn't a home as anybody could think it was. It was a place where we laid our heads down. At any rate, so there was no safety net, and these girls, some of them, ended up taking their clothes off for money when they left there, because you were just kind of kicked out as soon as you came of age, and you didn't have any money, you had nowhere to go. You had the clothes on your back, pretty much. And so, unfortunately, that's what they were doing. And I kept saying, but you're more than your body. You're more than your body. You know, you're smart. I always stayed in school, definitely. And there was a young girl there who was considering doing the same. And during my near-death experience was where I had spoken to her about it, that she was not only more than her body, but she was very smart. She could go to college. She could apply for grants from the government and get educated. This doesn't have to be your life. And she chose to go to school. And like, sorry. I was grateful being shown that in my near-death experience for my review, my life review. Yeah, I always find that emotional.
Yeah, I understand. So how did you land in group home? Because you said you were with your grandparents and parents were there, no?
Oh, I skipped that. I'm sorry. So I just kind of
No,
jumped.
no,
I'm
that's
sorry.
okay. I'm just
Yeah,
trying to
so
understand because you said you died in the car and then you are showing this kind of life review. But
yeah.
before that, as a teen, you were in a group home? As in you ran
When
away
I
from
was
parents?
when I was a teen, yes, getting part of the karma discussion portion, and understanding that I chose my parents, and my parents were young, very young. My mother had my brother at 15. It's very young.
Oh,
And they eventually got divorced, and then I had a stepfather who was very abusive. Child services had recommended that I not be in the home, and eventually they decided to move, and they left me on the streets of Montreal, and they moved 3,000 K away from Montreal, very far. And I had a suitcase and some belongings. I stayed at this place for a little while, this place for like friends, until I outlived my stay. So sometimes it was a night, sometimes it was a weekend. I always went to school every day. I had my books with me. And because I knew my education was really important, because I didn't want this to be my life. Eventually, I had run out of places to stay, and I was being kicked out of one more place. You've been here long enough, you have to leave. And I thought, I have nowhere else to go. I have no other friends' parents I mean, it wasn't fair for them. They were kind of supporting a child that, where's their parents, you know? So I ended up phoning social services from the connection with the youth protection officer, who put me into, her name was Miss Burgess. She was brilliant. She said, how long do you have to stay where you are? I said, I have to be out by tomorrow morning. It was the afternoon. So it was like Thursday afternoon. I had to be out by my Friday morning.
and
And
how old were you at that time?
16.
Oh, so you've had a
16.
very difficult childhood.
Yeah, definitely. Oh, yeah, definitely. She said, do you want to be in a French place? Do you want to stay as close as you can to school? Well, of course, I wanted to be at the same school. My friends were my only ever support system. And so I thought, okay, well, we'll stay the South Shore of Montreal. I could take the bus to school, like several buses, you know, it was about an hour or so away. And I ended up in what was called a group home for girls. There was 6. So I was the 6th. And it appeared nice until we were there, until I was living there. And then it was not so much. Not so much. We weren't allowed to be ever in the upstairs of the home. We could only live in the basement. And so I used to joke with the girls, because sometimes they would get very depressed about it. I used to joke with the girls and say, oh, we're the basement rats, you know, we're all together, we're basement rats, you know. And sometimes we were very hungry, you know. Sometimes there was a big freezer full of bread downstairs, and the girls were afraid to ever take even a slice of bread. And I was more bold. And I said, do you think she counts every slice of bread in the loaf? No. So I said, so what we're going to do is we're going to take 2 slices out of each loaf. That was for all 6 of us. And of course it was frozen. So I would heat it on a light bulb of a lamp. And so we would eat it. And so that's what we did. But I'll be honest with you, I know it sounds crazy, but I was happy to be there, because I did not have to. I knew every single night where, after school, where I could be, where I could do my homework, where I could lay my head down, wake up in the morning and do it all over again. I didn't have to worry until I was finished school, you know, so I was grateful for it, to be honest with you.
Oh, okay. So that's what you saw in the live review. So yeah, please
Yes,
continue with the live review.
was
Yeah.
so back in the life review, it was the girls from there who felt they had no choices in life. I was trying to tell them they did. So in my life review, I'm revisiting that part of my life. And the girls who went to, you know, strip clubs, basically, doing tricks, you know, for money, was very sad to me. Yeah. But the girl, the one who didn't do that, who did not do that, I was thrilled for her watching that, because I didn't know, I had already left. I didn't know that she chose not to, and that I had some type of impact on somebody that was positive and good, and she didn't have to go to the streets and sell herself. And so that was thrilling for me. I also understood, as we're moving more and more into, yes, the life review, but slightly beyond that, was the understanding of karma, the choosing. So the choosing of my parents. So before we incarnate, there's the choosing of the parents. There's the understanding of what the parents are going to be teaching the soul, if we choose to learn it. Hopefully we do, you know, we don't always. And that for myself, I chose a lot of hard things. And I wanted to meet, yes, my karma. I wanted to learn things that I didn't get to in other past lives. About resilience was one of them, to be resilient, to be courageous, to learn actually about grace was one of them. And in other lifetimes, even my stepfather, and I did, you know, as I was a young girl, teen, I could not understand why my life was so darn hard. You know, I just didn't understand it until I started watching this. And it was like a remembering. Oh, yeah, we do that. Oh, right. Yes, we make these choices. We make contracts and agreements with people. And so even with my stepfather, in another life, I had killed him. In this life, he was going to be very brutal to me. Not to kill me, though. I understood it well on the other side. Understood that really well. It was coming back and living and dealing with it was difficult still. My mother and I had many lifetimes. So did my father. My mother and I had lifetimes. There was a particular lifetime that even my mother remembered after I had come back from my near-death experience. It was about 5-6 years later, approximately. And don't forget, I wasn't allowed to talk about my near-death experience. So time had gone by, and I would talk about little pieces. And I had mentioned to her, oh yeah, you know, sorry, we had a lifetime a long time ago. We had a lifetime, and it looked to me like it was the 20s, the late 20s, just because of how the car looked. And so I started to talk to her about it. Oh, you know, it was like about the late 20s. This is what the black car looked like. There's a lot of chrome on it. And I was driving it. There was children. She said, stop, stop. I know this. Actually, you were driving the car. And she even talked about what I was wearing. I was wearing a powder blue, almost like a sort of like a jacket, of suit jacket, sort of. She said, you had even white pearls on. You had your white gloves. You were driving. And I'm sitting there, I'm looking at her. I'm absolutely blown away by the whole thing, because it was part of my near-death experience to be shown this. And she said, I was one of the children in the back of the car. And one of my brothers was the other child. And I drove us all off a cliff. Yeah, I just killed everybody. I don't know what all was happening in that lifetime, but there was a lot of depression. I don't know if it's because of the time period, the late 20s, early 30s, was the Grand Depression worldwide, I think, something like that. And so I don't know if it had to do with that. But anyways, she had described the rest of the story. And even when I was a child, to be honest with you, I was terrified to be having anybody drive me in the mountains. I'm talking about 4 and 5 years old, being terrified of my father driving, my grandparents driving, because I thought we were going off the cliff. So I didn't understand it until that review. That's when I understood it. As I was actually hysterical in the back seat as a child, you know, in this life. At any rate, I'm sorry, I'm kind of probably jumping all over the place. So going back to the karma, there was things that I wanted to experience that I had not yet even remotely learned. I certainly didn't learn to have any grace. I did have some resilience. I did have some, you know, but my understanding of my life was what the problem was. I was very confused, angry. Why did all this happen to me? It just didn't make any sense. I felt very lost as a young adult, and even, you know, I was 28. Up until that point, I didn't see any connection with anything in life. Horrible things would happen until my near-death experience. And that was when I had a much greater understanding of things. Could be very hard for other people to wrap their heads around. Yeah, you choose specific things in life. Not everything is a contract. Not every single thing we do is a contract, but the main points certainly are. They certainly are. Sometimes you'll have somebody come onto your path in life and they are a messenger. They may be on your path for maybe it's a week or a couple of months, and then you don't see them again. But they were a messenger and they gave you information. The question is, are we receiving it? Are we able to receive it?
You plan for these kind of instances also, where the messengers will come like in the blueprint, like they say that you have some certain milestones planned in the soul blueprint, and some soul
Yes.
contracts are there, and
Yes.
like it's like broad level, because we still have free will over here.
We have free choice all the time. So if I ignore that person who came onto my path and had something to share with me, I could say, I don't want to talk to them.
Yeah.
I don't want to get to know them. So it's choice, you know. So we always have choice, except for the very main parts, which is who is bringing you through your incarnation, i.e. the mother, right? The mother. Yeah. So that is definitely part of the contract. The parents. Do you always stay with the parents? No, some people are adopted.
Yeah.
But the mother that brought them into incarnation was definitely the choice.
Yeah, correct. That I understand.
Yeah.
So how long did you have this life review? As in terms of the time, how long were you dead?
It was 8 minutes and 57 seconds. So it was almost 9 minutes. Almost 9 minutes. Yeah. Yeah, it was technically not long on this plane, but there was so much information coming through on so many different topics. It was almost all at once, in lightning, faster than lightning speed, the speed of sound, maybe, you know, with so much information. Because then, you know, we went from karma to contracts to the place of healing for souls. There was the beautiful place of healing, and what was interesting about that is marble. I actually saw white marble, white marble columns, white marble floors. I couldn't believe it. Wow, and beautiful, beautiful, amazingly beautiful, but water of it's like pools of healing water.
You saw some part, you learned about the karma, you learned about your parallel or past life. Everything is happening at the same time. There's no such thing as time. So maybe
Yeah.
parallel lifetimes. And then you saw the healing chambers or the healing place. So were these in different dimensions? How was this thing organized? And if you were to talk about, watching all of this in Earth time, because you said it was at the lightning speed probably over there. But if you were to measure it in terms of Earth time, can you tell us like how long was it?
Well, it was honestly, I was clinically dead for just the 8 minutes and 57 seconds. And so that really is all it was in Earth time.
Oh, wow. Okay. So you learned so much in that time.
Yes. It was, we're moving on. It's this, then it's this, then it's fast. Like you're receiving so much information, and it's immediate, and it's telepathy, and it's just absolutely incredible. And it's like, okay, and now you're over here, and this is the souls can come here, to bathe in the waters of love and healing. And I mean, it's almost like the water's alive. It's crazy to say, but there's there's a feel to the water. It sounds crazy. And there's these columns of white marble as well, and it's like it's a place. And can I tell you, oh yeah, I know for sure it's in a different dimension? No, I can't tell you that. I don't know where that was. I was just there. It was kind of like, and now see this, Heather, and now remember this, Heather. And that's how we went along. It was very fast, which is why the whole thing was an evolution of understanding by the time I came back to the planet.
Wow.
And there was that level of healing, but then there was an in-depth place. The in-depth place was, to me, it looked like places that you went in. It's like a dome, oblong maybe, of light, and the soul would be there. And from what I understood on what was shared with me, a soul could be there for a very long time for that level of healing. If that soul had an extraordinarily traumatic, horrendous life experience on this planet, let's face it, it can be very brutal. They also went there, and they could be there for an extended period of time. There's no real time, but they could be there for an extended period of time. What was interesting about them is sometimes I could see some sort of like pods, I guess, I don't really know, where it would be pink, but very, very soft tones of pink. The light was also palpable. Everything seemed alive, like color was alive. I know that doesn't make sense. Yeah, so I don't know any other way to explain it. So there would, a very, very pale green, but there was colors that we don't have names for. Our human eyes can't even pick it up. So there were other colors. I remember other colors, but I don't know. I also understood that there was the place of learning. I have to back up. So sometimes as the soul comes in, and the waters, maybe it wasn't a truly brutal life, and they didn't have to go to the place of healing for an extended period of time. There was almost like a very mini tiny auditorium where you would come in and you would talk to other souls about your lifetime here, and express the things that you experienced, perhaps learned, and that you would share that. There was also the place of learning. The place of learning, again, everything's white. It's very strange. It's all white, like marble, which I thought odd. But anyways, what do I know? So the place of learning, you could learn anything there. String theory, you could learn about other dimensions, other worlds, other beings, other peoples. You could learn anything there. Then I was taken from there. Then we were off at the, I called it the Hall of Learning, and I know a lot of people have corrected me and said it's the Akashic Records, Heather. But I mean, I didn't have the language for it, so that's what I called it. Oh, I was at the Hall of Learning. Okay, the Hall of Records. And it was as high as the eye could see of what it looked like books. Some were very ancient and all the way down. And there was like a table there, and it was beautiful in a way, but it was very old also, you know. And I was brought up to this table that seemed kind of high to me, but I don't know, seemed kind of high to me. But I had looked at this book, and apparently it was mine. And there was a little, like a running movie in there of this lifetime, and it was very fast running movie. And I kind of was entertained by that in a way. But this, to be understood, this was long before Harry Potter was ever out. You know, I was 28. I'm a lot older now. I'm in my 50s. So when I did see Harry Potter, I said, hey, because there was the newspaper, you know, and yeah. And so I said, hey, did they speak to people who had near-death experiences about the book of life of their lifetimes? I really did question that, because I thought, you can't just make that up. You know, you can't just they talked to somebody, they had to have. And so I thought that was really interesting. There was also the understanding of soul vibration and how that worked. Not all souls are of the same frequency, which is interesting. You know, maybe you'll have souls that have not evolved lifetime after lifetime, and they are on a different frequency. There's other souls, and I don't know, level 3 frequency. This is the earth level 4, you know, kind of like you vibe together as a soul group, you vibe together. And I had learned that there was many different levels to the soul evolution, which meant understanding, consciousness, awareness, and frequency, which was very, very interesting. I did want to backtrack, if I could, for a moment. I had a very, very in-depth education about how energy really worked with the human body. And it was very, very in-depth. It was fast, mind you, but it was very, very, very in-depth on how, on a cellular structure, the human body works energetically, how those cells, like file systems, can become corrupt with illness, and how the entire frequency of that cell changes to a lower vibration. And not only that, this is including the organs, but this is also including the frequency, let's say, of a partnership or the family unit you're with. If there is a lot of abuse or harshness, you do hold it within the physical body, the energetic body. Eventually, because it's like a filing system, it's waiting for you to perhaps come to a place in life where you have the ability, the time, the know-how on how to actually work with whatever the experience was that's unprocessed. It's sitting there and waiting. So I did learn about that. I did learn about what can happen. eventually that energy becomes quite congested within a specific area, depending upon where we held it and what it was. Also, I learned all about how to remember to bring energy in and really truly how to work with it, how to release that unprocessed experience. You don't have to relive the whole entire thing. You have to acknowledge it, have the awareness, and then work towards releasing that and bringing in energy for what you let go of energetically. You have to fill, because then you're in an energetic deficit. I learned all about broadcasts. I learned about, yes, on how we converse with one another, but really what it looks like and how it filters into the energy field of the person, and how communities, cities, towns actually have a frequency to them that all the people together create as a unified community, city. I also learned all about how you ever been somewhere where there's a lot of joy, everybody's happy, and that actually creates, all the people there could create this incredible dome of light. And sometimes it's a very pale pink. It's real joy. It's a higher level of joy. I did learn about that. I did learn all about the broadcast. I did learn about how, sometimes we can't seem to figure out why we can't bring things towards us. We keep trying to have positive thoughts and everything, but really, if we have a belief structure that we're not deserving of good things in our life, that actually is the broadcast. We can have all the thoughts we want, but that actually is the broadcast, not deserving. So it was really quite in depth, like that sort of thing, that there's many different levels of us and how we vibrate down to the cellular structures. I did learn about the angelic realms, which was interesting because I certainly had zero belief in angels. I just thought it was a fable. A story you hear as children about angels. I never believed that for a second. So I was quite amazed with, the higher angels, the archangels. They're all at a different frequency, a different dimensional space. And that was, I was so grateful to know that again. I'm so grateful to know that again. Yeah, at any rate, also even prayer and thoughts and things like that filters up. It really does, or over there. It really does. You are really actually heard. I learned about our guides, ascended masters. We do have a lifelong guide that we know very, very well, and they know us very, very well. They actually know what our life journey, the majority of it, because we have choices, don't forget, but what our life journey is going to be here. And we actually can reach out to them to assist us. Once we become even really aware that they're there. But same like the angelic realm, or calling upon, a higher master who has had a lifetime here, but had gained so much knowledge that they integrated into true wisdom. And so I had learned about that. I also learned about galaxies with the universe, which is why I became completely obsessed with nebulas when I came back. Obsessed with nebulas. Reminded me of my near-death experience because they're incredibly beautiful. but they also have a sound frequency to them. Everything's alive. It's hard to explain. I also learned about some travel. I called it a wormhole. It's almost like a tube, but if you could imagine, it's kind of like plasma. Okay. And you move through that really fast. You really, really move through it very, very quickly, but it also has color to it. I went through one of those, and it was, I don't know, like warp speed that you see in a sci-fi movie of some kind. I didn't think I would survive it because it felt kind of bumpy to me for some reason. And it was kind of like being on a ride that at an amusement park that you want off now. I want to get off now. So, and it was, again, very, very fast, very split second. I also learned that you can go someplace, you just have to think it, and you can be there. I did go to this place, and it was called, I called it the Crystal City. I didn't really know. I just kind of made up my own stuff because I didn't know about these places. And so the Crystal City, I was just suddenly there like that. But I was with the beings or whoever was showing me all this stuff, right? So I wasn't there alone. The Crystal City was a distance from where I came in, I guess. But oh my gosh, it was beautiful. It was so beautiful and so peaceful and emanated amazing light frequencies. I was greeted by somebody, and it felt to me like home. It really felt like home for me. This person in sort of like a robe had embraced me. We knew each other really well, obviously, because I felt that embrace, and that I was home. And then I'm gone. I'm gone from there.
Where was it? This Crystal City, did you get to know, like, home? Because you said it was home, so which galaxy or where was
Don't
it?
know.
No idea. Okay.
No idea whatsoever. I wish I did, because I would really like to talk to somebody who knows about it. Maybe they've got more information, obviously, than I have, because I was just shown it and taken there, and that's all I know. And it felt like home, like I really was home there. There was also the cosmic, I call them the cosmic board. I don't know what they're really called, but that's what I called them. Where it's almost kind of like you stand in front of this oblong table, like a meeting table, actually, where you go to a meeting. And I was at the end of it, and it was like an introduction to them. And they were from different areas around, different galaxies, different dimensions around this cosmic board group. And some of them were just like a ball of energy. Beautiful, beautiful, mind you. There was a couple particular ones that I recall. There was a blue kind of cloak. They had a cloak. And so I could only see this part. And there was a red one too. And then there was light beings. And I wanted to know if I could change or alter my contracts, my contractual agreements for this lifetime, to which I was told no.
So you can't, because what I understand, essentially right now, especially, we are ascending, and multiple timelines, multiple dimensions, and multiverse. Everything is right now like at the same time it is happening on Earth, and that is why the soul contracts are very dynamic. So was it like in your case you could not do it, or They said in general you can't
do it. I could do, because that was part of the blueprint. So there's the real blueprint.
Okay.
And then I guess there's kind of like agreements. Agreements, sure. But the main structure of your incarnation, no.
No. Okay.
And it was no.
Got it.
The interesting thing that you mentioned about multiverses and everything, I'm going to actually say this. I have not said this to anybody. All that big group of people that came through the light, I'd have to say there were portions of those people that kind of confused me. First of all, it wasn't like there was only 50, okay? There was a massive group, like a huge crowd. And some of these people, well, there was a Knights Templar, which I found fascinating. There was a very, very old lady there who was, it's kind of like if you ever watched a movie in the filth of the time of an ancient city or a very old city, maybe in the 12th century. And this woman was elderly. She was all hunched over. She had dark brown, it almost looked like a sack thing as a shawl. Anyways, I wondered who they were. There were others there was this other, he was a very poor king, and he had a very handmade crown. And I remember he had a ruby jewel. It was gold, yes. He had, it was more like a robe with the wide arms, you know how it goes, and a sash, but he was actually a king. And I thought, it was so fast, but I still had a thought. It looks like a poor king, you know? But these were certain people that I recall seeing, and I actually didn't understand it until, I guess, not too long ago, when people are talking more about multiverses and multi-lifetimes. And so now I'm wondering about that. Were these my lifetimes, or were these people I knew from my lifetimes? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm actually not sure, but there was many, I'm talking from Egypt, I'm talking from Rome, many different people, many different colors, because we are yeah, well, I may be white in this lifetime, but that doesn't mean I have been before. And I've been a man, and I have also had, well, I did have some very brutal lifetimes. In Mexico, there's the place of the sun and the moon. And anyways, I've had lifetimes there where I was sacrificed. But anyways, I've had many lifetimes. So I had wondered that about all those people, because it didn't make sense that in this lifetime I didn't know all those people. So maybe
When
you can
did
answer.
you meet them? As soon as you crossed, as soon as you crossed
Yes.
at that time.
And because they all came forward as this massive crowd. But what was interesting about that, I'm not particularly tall. I'm 5'4", but I could see above. Like, I could see the people, even at the back. So that, you know, it was oddly interesting. It's not like I'm suddenly floating up above and looking. I don't know how I saw that, you know, but it did capture my attention, because that first very tiny row that came forward, there were other people beside them. I didn't know who they were, just that little group, but there was so many more. And I would even liken it to 100 and plus, maybe 200 people is huge group. Massive. To me, massive. What I consider massive. Maybe other people don't consider massive, but to me, I did.
And some of them were your close ones, like your
mother,
Yes.
grandfather, they came first. And
Yes.
because I do remember you had mentioned about wormhole, and typically in all the sci-fi movies, wormhole is a way you travel to another universe, not just dimension. It's another universe.
Universe.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. Because it was so incredibly fast that on, I guess, my being didn't feel that I was going to survive the incredible level of speed. Like, I know I was a soul. I know I wasn't this person, but even then, because you still have your own consciousness with you, I didn't 100% go through to the other side and stay there. Had I done that, I would have been 100% done in this lifetime.
Right.
I was,
Because it's amazing. You came back and you remember so much in so much detail, and only 8 minutes you were gone. Thank you for watching and listening in wherever you are in the world. As Ramdas says, that we all are just walking each other home. So thank you for co-creating the new earth along with me and our guests. And if you resonate with me, do subscribe to my channel and do let us know how you find our episodes. Thank you so much. Lots of love.